Torah. We are up to Daf Mem Gimel, Amud Aleph, and we're actually up to the very bottom of the page. So we're working our way through that. All of these laws about Shavuos of Cotton, you have to swear Moed and Mikzah, do not apply when it comes to property, doesn't apply when it comes to contracts, nor Avodim. And if we brought a klal or prat to klal, and the prat is, when it says of the Asher, these are all examples of things which are portable and things which have intrinsic value. Now we're talking about shaman. The same thing applies to shaman. There's a shvua that shaman have to make, actually 3 shvuas, and this shvua also does not apply to karka or to shtar or to avodim or hektish. The bottom of the page, on the base of the bottom. Shaman chinam ein nishban. How do you know? Tell them what we learned. It says a pasuk, "Yitin isharei," or a person gives his friend, talks about giving him this is shaman chinam. You gave him kesef or kelim. So we say like as follows: whatever you give. So this is a generic term, klal. It's all inclusive. Then it says kesef kelim is very specific. Money or utensils is a prat, is a detail. And then it says lishmar to guard and to mind is chazav kol. Again, anything. It's klal u prat to klal. I atadon elake ena prat. So therefore, you only include things which are similar to the prat. Ma prat mefudish dover metal, something which is mobile. The gufa moment intrinsic value is avkol dover metal. The gufa moment. The exception is karkois, property which is not mobile. She'ain metal, she'ain metalping. You can't move them around. Yotzu avodim. Exception is slaves. Shehukshul karkois compared to property. Yotzu start is contract. She'avapish metalping. But ein gufa moment. They have no inherent value. They just represent value. And Hegdish, how do you know about Hegdish? Because it says a pasuk, ki yitain ish eyu, which excludes your friend and excludes Hegdish. Hegdish eyu ksiv. Now this is interesting because Rashi in Shabbos, in the story of Hillel there, and when Hillel says, "Madaloch hasani lechavrich lesavid," that's the golden rule. That which you hate done to yourself, don't do your friend. Rashi says two pshatim there. The first pshat Rashi is re'eyu is Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And he brings us proof that he's talking about, don't do to Hashem what Hashem, you want Hashem to do to you. Yet here we're using the word re'eyu to exclude anything which is outside of, the us people. Interesting. Noise sacher ein sham. Then the next level, the next pasuk in the Torah talks about noise sacher, that if you get paid. And here you have more obligations. Not only if you're negligent, but if you got lost, if you were stolen, you're also responsible. So we know how to know it excludes that you don't have to swear all that when it comes to karkin or to tanabon. And we learn the next pasuk starts off as well. It talks about Shavuos Daf. If a person gave to his friend, there again it's a klal, all inclusive. What it itemizes as chamoy, yishay, donkey, a cow, or a sheep, prat, that's a specific detail. The whole behema or any other animal, again, is a klal. At least to get your mind, because of a kol. The same thing as we said before. Only things which are mobile, intrinsic value. And Hegdish, the same problem with Hegdish, it says, ki yitin ish elre ehu, excludes Hegdish. See what it says. Then we had an argument in the Mishnah regarding, let's say, I said to you something which is attached, something which is growing, but it's not actually something attached to the ground. Let's say I gave you 10 vineyards full of grapes, and you said, no, you only lent me 5. And therefore, I'm a moed of a mixus. So there's an argument, do we confuse the grapes as if they're part of the vines and therefore they're part of karka, you don't swear? Or do we say that the grapes are sort of independent? So what's the argument here? Ameya says, yes, dvorim shehen karka above enga karka. They look like property, but technically they're not. For example, like grapes. Meklal that Ameya saw, was seen Ameya holds, call them a karka. The rabbis hold, the Rabbanan hold that since it's attached to the vines, they're part of the ground. And Ameya said, no, they're not part of the ground. So the question is, so if so, why they argue about grapes? At the miflagi betu'unas, why argue about grapes? Miflagi besrukas, talk about the vines themselves. Even though they're bare, there are no grapes there whatsoever. Nevertheless, we treat them like karka or not. We're talking about it here. But the argument is not whether something that emanates from the ground is considered a karka. They're arguing about grapes which are fully ripe. Yeah, and fully ripe. Do we still, since they're about to be harvested, so therefore it's considered already as if it's separated enough. The main holds kibbutz dam if it's already separated, and the Rabban hold like kibbutz damian. They're not separated; they're still karka, and therefore you don't swear by the mixes and so on. Like 10 vineyards, you owe me, and he said 5. Taisha says very interesting. Don't think that just because a mayor holds that the grapes are considered as if they're cut off already, then on Shabbos you're allowed to pick fruits from the tree. Because Kibbutzer Damyan. He says Shabbos has totally different rules to the way we learn out, harvesting a Shabbos. We learn out for some money, which are ready to be cut and harvested. So no, don't compare. Anyway, Einish boyin el al dover shebemida ushav mishkol. Then the Mishnah concludes you only swear on things which have a precise measure, a number, a weight, and so on. And then we said the Mishnah said, the guy says, I gave you a full house. I want to give you a full wallet. And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. Here, take back your house exactly the way it is, the way you gave it to me. And here, take back your wallet exactly the way you gave it to me. That's not called a million mixer because you didn't get a precise measurement. But if you said, so there was the house was full till the beam that was protruding. And he said, no. You gave me only till the window sill. So then, okay, that's a million mixes. Says the Gemara, when is this rule said only be said stam a house? I gave you a house that was full. Okay, a house was full. You can't measure which house. If he told him this specific house, that's all he said. He didn't say a number, didn't say a height or anything. Just this specific house was full. So we can go into the house and we can measure what it means full. And Mola, Yediya Tanos, you know precisely what he's asking for. This house full. And you answered back, this house not full. So therefore, we have a case of major mixes. That's according to Abaya. So you tell me you don't need a precise measure, just saying this house is sufficient. So why does the Mishnah have to then give an example of you said to the beam and you said to the window? Why did the Mishnah just say you said this house is full and he said no, this is the house where you gave it to me? Right, a more common example. Why introduce which is far more specific? Talk about itself. No matter what do you mean by Molly, a full house. I would buy Molly Chai, but this house is Chai. Even this house is not precise, it's not Chai. You have to give exact measure. Exactly. And in return, he has to be made a different measure, saying, no, not that amount, but a different amount. And then therefore you're made of mixes. So the Gemara, Tani comes I'll support the Rabbi. Kair Tvua Libiyot, you owe me a Kair 30 so Tvua. He says, no, you don't. You don't know anything. Potter, the din is that he is Potter. Inside here, it says that the Girsa was Ein Biyadi Elakitnius, which is like I'm made it to something, but totally not what you're asking for, not Memin Hatanya. Yes, there be a Potter, according to the Chachamim, not according to Shengula. I gave you this large Menoida, it's mine. And he said, I only have a small menorah, potter. Why? Because it's not Haidom in Hatayna. It's not the same. Just because they call it menorah, it's not the same thing. You ask me for a menorah that's from the floor up to whatever, my head, and you tell me about a little tabletop menorah. It's not the same product. A big gartel of mine. You have a small gartel, same thing. This is not a Haidom min Hatayna. We're not talking about the same product. In these cases, are potter. I will if he tells him you have 30 so mine. I only have 15. So here we have precise measure. I'm made to a partial. Yeah, exactly. So what happens now? This is the trouble. A menorah that weighs 10 liters of gold, and he said no. I have a menorah that weighs 5. That's chayiv. Now, if you prime FAC, you read this. 10 liters is a big menorah, and a 5 liters is a small menorah. A minute ago, you said it's not haydom minatine, and now you're telling me that it is considered major mixes. What's going on? The Gemara will explain. And then the mission said, I said, this is the rule. It has to be precise in number of whatever weight. It has to admit, What you tell me that and close it over as there are other cases that you're not chayiv. Which case he told me that you're not chayiv? My lab lasuy exactly Rabbi's case. The chiddush is lasuy bayis ze molei. He said this house is full, so you might think that this house is full. Sounds more like already there's a sort of measure here we can quantify it. And yet the chiddush is no, that's not called a midah or mishkol a million. It's not exact. Says the Gemara, What's the difference? What's the reason why? What's the reason why Menoidik Day and Leg Town don't work? Because it's not really, you're not talking to me about the same species, you're talking about two different species. Rabbi Kiva Eger says that's the reason why Menoidik Day and Leg Town doesn't work. He doesn't understand. The reason why it doesn't work is you just said you need a midah. He didn't give a measure. How big Menoidik? What's a big Menoidik? What you think a big Menoidik is, I think it's a small Menoidik. So what's the Gemara? Why does the Gemara, he says, have to introduce here? Forget this preamble, says Rabbi Kiva Eger, because the preamble is not only unnecessary, that's not even pshat. So in the next case, Bas Es and Bas Chamish, you gave a midah. So you need an explanation. And the question is, it's not the same min. And ask a question. But it's totally unrelated to the fact that Menoidik Gdeila, Menoidik Tana, it doesn't work. Anyway. And he brings the Tzarchi. So, he might ask a question, if the problem is that we're not talking about the same Menoidik, Bas Es, Bas Chamish, Nami, Mashatonu, Lohaidla, so again, you asked for a 10-liter, weight in gold, and I'm talking about a 5-liter weight in gold. That's not the same thing. We're talking about Menoidik Shechuyis Askinim. This second case is talking about made up of parts, like a Lego set. So therefore, I said has made up of 10 parts, and you said, no, you want to get more made up of 5 parts. Okay, that's mamash a case of Menoidik makes this. The Kamoidele Mina. So the 10, it comes from the 5, comes from the 10 comes from the 5, you just add it on to the 5, so therefore it's the same meaning. Ask the Gemara, so why can't we say, so why gartel is different? At least let it say, we're looking at the life. So you had 10 parts of a long gartel, and you put all of stitches on each part and sections, and you made a long gartel. Same thing. Why when it comes to the second part of the bracket, it only uses the example of the Meneda and does not use the contrasting example of a gartel? Ella, the life of electronic, we're not talking about parts. So obviously, we're not talking about parts. We're not parts. So what's going on here? Ella, Rabbi Mam, shiny Menoidik. Menoidik different. The difference, Menoidik Gdoila means in height, and it's a big Menoidik, branches sticking out, and you can't change the Menoidik Gdoila to rectangle. This is how it's made. The mold you can't. When we say over here Menoidik Esaliti, we're talking about the thickness. When I look at the Menoidik, if you cut off the back half, you shave off half of the Menoidik in the back. To me, it still looks the same Menoidik. I'm not putting on a scale. I'm just looking at it. It doesn't appear to be any different. So Menoidik Gdoila, Menoidik Tana, there it's a possible 2 to 3 minutes. But a Menoidik thick or thin, it's not 2 minutes. The same Menoidik, you're just shaving it down. Mashenke by gartel, the only way to take a long gartel and make it smaller is by cutting it. You'll right away see the cut. You'll see that it's not a natural thing. You could just shave off and peel off and make it turn it into 5 liters. So therefore, it's considered min hataina. Next Mishnah. We had this already. You lend money to someone and you want security, peace, and confidence. We'll soon discuss whether the mashkin actually sort of is in lieu of payment, and then you give it back to mashkin and you get your payment, or the mashkin is purely for you as a current loan, but you should remember, give confidence, or you remind the borrower, see, this is yours. Why do I think I have it? Because you owe me money. So Amal was chaver mashkin. The case is as follows. I lend you, we also have to as well, similar. If you lend your friend money on a mashkin, the other had mashkin, and he lost the mashkin, the malva lost the security. He says to him, "Sell, he'll be sicha. I lent you a sell on this mashkin for dinner, 2 shkol. The shekel hayeshava. But the mashkin, the loan was for a seller, 2 shkol. The mashkin was worth a shekel. So I owe you the difference. Sorry, you still owe me the difference between what I lost, the shekel, and the 2 shkol you borrowed from me. Give me a shekel. Okay, and in defense, the borrower says, "Well, no, he'll be sunny all of the seller yeshava. It was worth the seller. In other words, I owe you nothing." So he's a kofer hakel potter. We already learned before. If you're a total denier, you don't pay. There's one way to mix this here. Case number 2. So the malva is the plaintiff, the claimant. Seller, he'll be sicha lent your seller. The shekel hayeshava, same argument. But in this case, the borrower says, "No, I grant you that it wasn't worth the total amount of the loan, but it was worth more than what you claim. Ella seller, he'll be sunny. You let me 2 shkolim, which each shekel is worth 2 dinim, so it's 4 dinim. It was worth 3 dinim. I still owe you money, but I only owe you 1 dinim. So you're asking me for 2 dinim, and I'm made to 1. That's a classic case of made mixer in chayt. What about the other way around? The leiva is claiming for the malva. The Leiva say, hey, 1 second. Salela, you let me 1 seller on this mashkin, but the mashkins were 2 sloim. You actually owe me now a seller. So the Leiva is the claimant, is the plaintiff. And the other guy says, he's totally denying it. He's saying it's only worth a seller. Okay, potter. Again, Hako, you're potter. Until Nach came along and said, you have to make a sure. Seller, he'll be selling Allah. Again, the same kind. It was worth 2 slime, only a seller. The Malva says, I'll grant you that it was worth more than what the loan was, but not as much as you say. Seller, he'll be sichalav. It was worth 5 din. Now the question is, umin nishba, the Mishnah saying. So who swears? Which the Gemara will talk about. What's the Mishnah actually asking here? Who swears? Me shahapakadin etzlay. Sounds like the Malva always has to swear. He has to pekadin. So we're going to have to understand when the second half of the Mishnah is obvious. That's Moed Mixes. The Malva is the one who's the defendant, so he has a swear. But in the first half of the Mishnah, it's the Leiva who's the Moed Mixes. What do you mean the Malva swears? We'll talk about it. Why is it like so? Because we're worried. Shema Yishbazeh. If the Malva still retains the Pekadin, he had it hidden somewhere. Then the Leiva doesn't swear, oh, this is worth whatever you say is worth. Then the Malva will extract it and say, hey, you're a liar. You said it was worth 5 dinim. Or whatever, 2 sloim, it's worth only 1 seller. The Yetzirah is becoming. So what exactly is the problem with that? So some places actually says, and it means in the future, the Leiva will never have to swear or say Adis again because his credibility is mishat. So others say, no, if he's a liar, he doesn't deserve to be trusted in the future. So others say that pshat is that right now, he made a shvu in our court, makes a mockery of the court. Because then it turned out to be that the shvu was false, and then it cheapens the whole idea of shvuas, and people will start taking it lightly. So we don't want that to happen. It's so obvious that the guy swore false. Says the Gemara, which case is it talking about when he says min nishba, who swears? Which case are we talking about? Ilema Aseifa, where the Leiva is the one who's claiming and the Malva is the one who's being made in the mixes. Now the Malva is the one who has the Pekadin, or he claims that he lost it. The Tepaglay, the Shua, Gabi Malva. What do you need me Nishba and give me a whole reason? The reason is that the Malva is a made in the mixes. The Leiva is saying that the mashkin that you lost was worth 2 sloim and you only lent me 1. And he says, no, it's worth 5 dinim. I only owe you 1 dinner, a quarter of a seller. So the Malva is a made in the mixes. Of course he has to swear. Nothing to do with a takana, like it sounds like it's a takana. We don't want them to pull out the mashka, the pekadin. That's the reason why. Shmuel says, Shmuel says, Areisha. On the first case, well, the Leiva should be swear because the Leiva is made in mix. So the Mal was claiming that the mashka was only worth only worth 1 shekel, a half of a seller. So you owe me the difference of the. And the Leiva says it was worth 3 dinarim. So I only owe you 1 dinar. So the Leiva is a made in mixes. So the din should be that the Leiva should swear. Came along the second, and Nishba, the Malva swears. Rabbi Chibarav Areisha. Rabbi Chibarav says Areisha. Rabbi Yechanan Areisha. So okay, but the Reisha Gufi had 2 cases. One was a Tchever Hakel, one where the Leiva said, "What are you talking about? You're telling me that it was worth a half of a seller, but it was a full seller. It was exactly the amount of your loan. Is that the case? My Reisha, so there's no shua there at all. So what do you mean that the min nishba? So it must be safer the Reisha. The second case where the Leiva says, yes, I still owe you money, but the mashkin was worth more than what you claim. You say it was worth only a half a seller. I'm saying it was worth 3/4 of a seller. Okay, so therefore we made this takana, even though Leiva should be swearing, the Malva swears. Says the Gemara, seller, he'll be sicha. What's the case? You lent me, I lent you a seller. The Malva says the shekel yeshava, the mashkin was worth a half a seller. You owe me the difference. And the Leiva says, like no, kela seller, he'll be sonny. Well, true, you lent me a seller. But shloisha didn't him hayeshava. It was worth 3/4 of a seller. And the din is chayiv, and who's chayiv to swear? The Leiva, the shul guy, because he's the one who made the mixes. The Chachamim took away the shvua for the Leiva and put it on the Malva for the Chachamim we just said. Said the Gemara now, but Rashi came along and said that in this case over here, before we have anybody swearing, first we turn to the Malva. Like every Shomer, the Shomer has to swear shvua she'eina b'shusi. First thing he has to swear is that he's not that he eyed this object and he wants it, so he made up the story that it was lost or stolen, whatever it is, so that he can get a hold of it. So we swear shvua she'eina b'shusi, shvua shlachti b'yad, and shvua that what you claim happened. Machlekes Rishonim, all 3 shvuas are matayda. One is matayda, and the other ones are through Gilgal Shua, traces in the beginning. Oh, but it doesn't matter. So Rashi says in this case here, first the Malva has to swear Yitaka no longer has a pekadin in his possession. because maybe he liked the pekudon, so he made up a story that it was lost and just give me the difference. So we make him swear he no longer has possession, and once he swears he no longer has possession, then why shouldn't the labor swear? But he makes what are you worried about? The mouth will pull it out. He can't. He just swore that he doesn't have it. He can't come tomorrow to bed and say, "Oh, here, your labor's a liar," because then who's the bigger liar? This guy swears, I no longer have it. And then there's a nishba kamashav, and then the labor swears how much is worth is therefore hachikamas. What's the mission then? Not who swears. They both have to swear. But me nishba tchila. Who should we have swearing first?
What's the left minute? Who goes first and second?
Oh, because there's no longer because if we have the labor swearing first, the value, and then the turn out you swear the Malva realizes that the labor made a big mistake here or lied, he'll just say, "I'm not swearing. Here's the Malva." I just remembered I have it at home, and you'll pull it out and show everybody we're going to lie the labor. We don't want that to happen. We're going to make a mockery of the court. So me who swears first? Me shapakod netzle. The one who has the pekudon. Why? Maybe the Malay will swear. Then also changes the story. No. I just remembered. I have it. Put it in the closet somewhere. Okay, now it's a big chiddush here. Shmuel Kavlon says an interesting thing. When let's say there's $1,000 loan, and I give you security, the security is worth $200, and you lost it. And if you lost it, so what's shot? So you deduct from the $1,000 200, maybe leave that 100, or do we say the whole loan goes away? You give me back the pekudon, I'll pay you for the loan. So says Shmuel, hi man, you let $1,000, $1,000 zuz to your friend. And you gave him a mashkin, you gave him a sickle, the handle of a sickle, which has really not much value. What do you do with the handle, not the sickle? If he lost the handle of a sickle, he loses his entire loan. And what's the logic in that? So why would a person accept it? Why would a mouth accept? I gave a $1,000 loan. I want security. You give me a $5 handle of a sickle, and that's it. And if I lose it, I take full of price. Because there are advantages to the Malva having this handle. For example, Shemitah, we had in the beginning Matis. Shemitah comes in and cancels the loan. But if there's a mashkin, then there's no law. He goes over here. It's as if you already paid me, and then I'm giving you the mashkin back. I'm just collecting the money of this mashkin. So the mashkin gives an advantage to this one of a few examples. Gives an advantage to the Malva. So he's happy to take a little bit of risk because this way at least he's ensured that he comes Shemitah, he won't forfeit his loan. So it says Shmuel, he loses the entire loan because this represents the whole idea that this is like payment. So I already got paid for it, so I'm not like you guys anymore. And this represents the whole loan. You lost it. That's it. You lose it. But if we gave him two handles, we don't say, oh, each handle is worth $500. Half the loan, two handles for $1,000, even though the handles are worth $5 each. We don't say that it's because since we didn't say that's what it is. So we say in that case, since he has one handle still with him, so he can give back the mashkin, and the mashkin is not complete, so he has to pay him that the $5 for deduct from the loan the $5 that he owed, that is worth. And Nachman agrees. He says I feel the entire ticket of it chamish meir. No, even not two. Why you give him two? Because two represents the full amount, and if you lose one, you lose half. But you lose the other one, you lose the entire. But we gave him two different items altogether. One was the handle, and one was a chunk of silver. A chunk of silver is not just representative of a loan. A chunk of silver is actually it's maybe a form of payment. If I don't pay you cash, keep the silver because the silver might be worth more than the loan, at least equal to the loan. So in that case, it comes out as two kinds of mashkins here. One is the kata, which is representative of the whole loan, and the other one is taka, a form of payment. So then. Like over there, in that case over there, we don't say that. We don't say that. What he got already? If he loses one, and as if he got paid. There we say it's value. If he loses an nascha, he loses half. He loses the other one, he loses all of it. We don't say that it's a different kind of mashkin. That what mashkin represents the entire amount. We don't split the kinds of mashkin that you give. So now we look at Mishnah. Selah he'll be sikh olav. It says Mishnah clearly I lent you a selah. So what happened here? The Malva lost the pekudon, and the Malva is still demanding the difference. We just said that if you lose the mashkin, the entire loan is forfeited. So what's he asking for? What's he claiming? Okay, I'll sell why doesn't the labor say to him, I don't know what you want? You took a mashkin. I mean, we all agree you took a mashkin. I don't care what the value of the mashkin is. The loan is over. So the Gemara said, this is Rashid Gisa, takes it exactly the opposite. Mas Nisin is talking about the Parish, where he clearly says that this mashkin is not representative of the entire loan. So therefore, if we have to calculate the value of the mashkin, deduct that from the loan. And Shmuel is talking about the loy parish. If he didn't say anything, automatically the mashkin represents the entire loan. Tezilum just opposite. Why would the mashkin automatically, it doesn't make sense. A $5, a handle of a sickle should automatically represent $1,000, all the way around. Shmuel's din is only with the parish. That if he clearly said that this represents the entire loan, but a loy parish, if you don't say that clearly, then the pashtas, whatever the value is, that's all it is, like the Mishnah says. Let's say, in fact, it's a machleket tanoim. This idea is a machleket tanoim. What Shmuel says, if I lent you money and you took security and he lost the mashkin, he swears the yitel esma oisef. So he swears that he lost it and he takes his money. In other words, because let's say we'll soon see if it's a shemachinam shemachinam the guy swears that he lost the thing and he's going to say shemachinam and I lost it, so I'm a potter, it was stolen or whatever, and she told me the money. You still owe me, I was only a shemer in the mashkin. You owe me the full chayt. Rabbi Kiva says, Yachol hu shayoy malay. No, the leider can say to him, Klum hil visani el mashkin. The only reason why you lend me the money is based on the security of the mashkin of the meisachel. You lost the mashkin, you lost your money. Sounds like Shmuel. It sounds like Shmuel. That what the whole idea of the mashkin is, it's tied to the money. You can't give me back the mashkin, I don't owe you the money. So that's the machlekes Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva. Shmuel sounds like Rabbi Kiva. Hamal the elav zuz b'shtat. If it was documented, and you have a shtar for $1,000, and I gave you a mashkin in addition to that, and then the same thing, Rabbi Kiva is moida, that in this case you don't lose $1,000. So you can't say that mashkin represents $1,000. You gave me there's a shtar here. The shtar is what takes care of the $1,000. The mashkin is purely is a current dvarim to remember or I can remind you, hey, you want it back? Pay me on time. Over the mashkin. Of the Moisef, so forget, just opposite. Right. That you lost the mashkin, you lose your money. Because why else did you give it? I don't need the current dvarim, just the way you're at, I don't need the current dvarim because I have a shtar. The shtar, it not only commits you, but also the shtar will remind you that you owe me the money. So why do you do a mashkin at all? What's the point of the mashkin in this case? The point of the mashkin is not the current dvarim, you have a shtar. The point of the mashkin here is to say that if you lose the mashkin, the whole chayv goes with it. Now, hey, what are we talking about? Either, let's understand the case here. Either Shava Shir Zuzim, if you tell me that the mashkin is worth exactly the amount of the loan, let's go back to the Machlik of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says that he forfeits the entire loan, and Rabbi Lezer says no, that you can collect the entire loan. What's going on here? If the mashkin is worth exactly the same amount as the loan, then my time with Rabbi Lezer. Why would Rabbi Lezer say that that you still owe the full money? Why would you owe the full money? I gave you a mashkin which is worth the 1,000 or whatever it is you lent me, and now that you lost it, I have to pay you a second time. What's the logic in that? Elah must be talking about, but must be talking about it's not worth the full amount of money at all. The loan was 1,000, but this is only worth $20. And what? And with the Shmuel, come in, they're arguing at this very point of Shmuel. And the chiddush is, so Rabbi Lezer is saying here that you owe something. You deduct the value. Let's say the mashkin is worth $10. Okay, and you owe me 1,000. I'll deduct $10 from what you owe me. And Rabbi Kiva says no. You lose the entire $1,000, like Shmuel said. Shmuel said that that the mashkin represents entire money. That's the machlekes. Like Moshe Lav Davka. Bid the loy shavi if it's not worth full amount. Kuliyama less of the Shmuel. Shmuel's chiddush is such a big chiddush that let's assume that everyone doesn't agree with Shmuel. No one agrees with Shmuel. That such a small token should cancel the entire debt. So what's going on here? The hacha bid the shava shir zuzah. They're talking about a case here that the mashkin is worth the full amount. But the question is the malva liable if an accident, for example, occurred? Now, what's the shaila here? We'll see later. Remember, we had a Gemara machlekes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef whether a shem pekadon is a shem chinam or a shem sacher. Why would he be a shem sacher? Because at the time when he's taking care of, let's say, they're talking about a shem aveda. While he's taking care of this aveda, he's potter from giving tzedakah to a poor person. He makes money on the deal. So Rabbi Yosef says it's a shem sacher, and Rabbi says it's a shem chinam. So now we're talking about a general shem pekadon. And whether he's chayiv on if an oinus happened, an accident, is he liable or not? Now, what's the machlekes? If you hold like Rabbi Yitzchak said, and we had a few places. Rabbi Yitzchak said that a malva is koine the mashkin. Well, so see, if the malva is koine the mashkin, then anything that happens, he's responsible for because he has to return it, even for the oinus. But if you don't hold Rabbi Yitzchak, the malva is not koine the mashkin; it's merely a shomer. Then if an oinus happens, the malva is potter. And that's the machlekes of Chilul Shavuos. We'll see, but regardless, an oin is definitely his potter. So either way, he is potter. That's the machlekes. The argument Rabbi said, owns the mashkin in Shenemar. It says the lender. It's just amazing that the word balchoiv, how it changed over time. In the Gemara, balchoiv means a lender. Today, own the chayv. Today, balchoiv is a borrower. And we have a number of words in the Gemara just completely changed. Amoritz is the best example. Rashi Chumash Amoritz is Am Shebegina Nivras Oretz. Today, it's in the Gemara times already, it was a defamatory name. Anyhow, it says, if you give it back to the poor person at night, whatever it is that they need, we'll consider it tzedakah. What's tzedakah? Tzedakah is if I give you something of mine, that's tzedakah. You may know kind of mashkin tzedakah benayla. What's tzedakah? I'm giving you back your item. Where's the tzedakah? Mekan the balchayv shekoyin mashkin. From here is that I the balchayv is koyin mashkin. Lema, let's say, koyin mashkin, and that is the machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. That Rabbi Eliezer holds that he's only a shamer, doesn't own it. It's only a shamer. Therefore, if an accident happens, he's potter, and that's why he still owns the money. And Rabbi Akiva says no, that the balchayv owns the mashkin, and therefore he's chayvim for oinsin. If he doesn't return it, he doesn't return it. We'll continue tomorrow night, 7.